When I opened that brown box and saw the empty velvet pouch with a photo of my wife's stolen $50,000 necklace, I knew the HOA queen's lies were finally cracking. But what I did next didn't just expose her, it turned the whole neighborhood against me. The day I watched Carrie Ann Price tuck a jewelry box into her cardigan, I felt something cold split me from the inside. Right then, betrayed. She wasn't called Karen in our neighborhood, the HO called her the curator. Everyone nodded when she passed like she collected favors and smiles always. My daughter, Marisol Reed, sent that 25th birthday necklace from Orlando to surprise my wife in Amarillo, Texas. We waited like children for arrival eagerly. Package number 99 vanished from our shared porch under twilight. A neighbor saw Carrie Ann stroll away with a wrapped box cradled like treasure and smiling. The HOA meetings pretended to investigate, papers shuffled by polite hands. Complaints disappeared into files labeled routine and resolved quietly while she kept taking packages. I could have called the sheriff, but my pride stayed stubborn, fearing a scandal that would splinter our small street's fragile civility and reputation lost. Instead I watched, learning routes and routines, timing carriage returns, noting the way she glanced over shoulders before slipping into driveways as if hunting packages. My wife Lena, recovering from surgery, cried when the necklace failed to arrive. Before we go on, please, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to see how many families, parents, and neighbors are feeling this story across the country tonight. Your comment helps this message reach more people who've faced unfair HOA rules too. Her disappointment sank into me like a physical ache that haunted nights. So I planned a harmless exposure with a glitter device and camera, careful to avoid harm while aiming to catch theft and shame in closure. On the morning I set the trap, my hand shook, I slid the rig into a box, heart pounding, ready to reveal everything and consequences. I called the device an art piece on the porch, borrowed from an old theater prop chest I kept in our garage. Neighbors rolled by, exchanging small talk about autumn leaves, while I pictured the camera angle catching whoever took that package cold and candidly. Marisol texted from Orlando, excited for Lena's smile. She wrote, "Make sure it's safe, Dad," and I promised her the truth, no lies. Every ritual of the curator mattered. White gloves at board meetings, a precise polite cough before questions, a polite smile when pockets were empty. I placed the box on the porch and pretended to do yard work, glancing through the dining room window at noon with practiced patience. My friend Eustace, retired postal inspector, gave tips about lighting and framing without revealing how to hurt people, only how to record evidence properly. I felt ridiculous and theatrical, but I also felt righteous. Sometimes small towns need a little theater to show truth under fluorescent light. At 3:15 p.m., a delivery truck turned our corner. I froze, palms damp, the camera already rolling and the glitter device nestled inside. A figure approached with the cushion of arrogance I had come to know. My breath hitched as their shadow fell across the porch threshold. I leaned closer to the window, heart like a drum, and then the figure paused, looked up directly at our house, and hesitated. Her hesitation surprised me. Carrie Ann stared at the porch light as if counting stars, and then moved with the slow certainty of someone practiced. She lifted the box as though retrieving lost property, checking around for witnesses, face composed, hands steady like a librarian indexing books. I watched the camera screen later with my whole life condensed into 30 shaky seconds of her retrieving our family's joy silently. When she walked away, carrying the box under her arm, she passed by Mr. Albright, who pretended not to see and kept mowing his lawn. That night Lena sat in the dark living room, bedside lamp humming, and asked me directly if I suspected the HOA president of theft. I could not hide the camera footage forever. I told myself, evidence would be a slow surgical operation to remove her from power. In the morning I showed Eustace the footage. His eyes squinted through decades of habit, and he said, "You have her, Gideon." We proceed carefully. We plan with caution. No traps to humiliate without proof, no vigilante posters, no gossip, just a clean reveal to the board and local news if necessary. I drafted an email to the HOA attorney, attaching a single still from the footage. My hands typed like they were trying to catch grief before it ran. Before I could send it, my phone chimed. A message from Marisol read only, "Dad," someone replied to my post, "Look," and the image shocked me into silence. Marisol's screenshot showed Carrie Ann in an online auction, posting photographed trinkets labeled "community finds," with curious timestamps and familiar porch shadows. The auction listings matched items we'd lost for months: lamps, children's bikes, a vintage watch. The necklace's image was missing but implied among other treasures. A knot tightened inside me. This was larger than our street's petty politics. It smelled like a private market built on neighborly trust stolen away. I printed each listing, sticky notes like confessions, and took them to Lena, whose hands trembled as she traced the typed words with a quiet grief. Neighbors started to whisper in the hardware store and at Sunday morning coffee. Rumors spread like wildfire when packed into polite small-town conversation about ethics. Carrie Ann's smile at the next EJA meeting seemed painted on, too bright, and her voice carried the practiced cadence of someone accustomed to being above reproach. I rose to speak, my mouth dry, and presented our evidence with Eustace at my side. The room inhaled as if anticipating a courtroom verdict. The board shuffled papers, glanced at each other, and said they needed time. Their delay tasted like betrayal, as if civility still protected a thief. That night someone slipped an anonymous flyer under my door. "Leave it alone, Holbrook. Not everything needs digging up." My stomach dropped like bad news. I realized then that exposing her might fracture lives beyond ours, and yet silence would let theft keep swallowing our neighbors' trust whole. I hired an attorney with a soft voice, Ms. Corliss Vale, who smiled least like the curator and most like the scales of justice. We filed a formal complaint with timestamps, footage timecodes, and a list of missing items, including the approximate value of Marisol's necklace carefully estimated. The HOA board called an emergency hearing, the clubhouse filled with the low hum of neighbors holding their breaths as if awaiting thunder. Carrie Ann arrived in a navy suit, hair perfect, eyebrows arched like question marks. She smiled with the confidence of someone who believed rules favored her. When presented with evidence, her face flickered with a micro-expression, a human crack, quickly sealed by the polished mask of authority. She denied everything with practiced eloquence, suggested perhaps the items were misplaced, and proposed creating a new lost and found committee, deflecting like an expert. The room split into factions. Those who trusted her past charity and those whose porches had been emptied into that private market. Lena sat with clenched fingers, eyes like lightning. I could feel her sorrow changing into an iron resolve that made my chest ache with pride. Outside, someone had posted flyers with a still from the footage and the words, "Where is our stuff?" pinned to mailbox posts like a public heartbeat. A local blogger reached out, asking to tell the story. Suddenly our private grievance moved toward public daylight and the curator's composure began showing thin seams. The blogger's post went live at dawn and our sleepy town's inbox filled with comments, anger, relief, and neighbors naming items they'd lost to the same hands. The town square gathered that week like a magnet drawing iron filings, and kids peered from behind strollers while adults traded hard stories into softer confessions. Carrie Ann's social calendar splintered, invitations vanished, committee chairs resigned, and her polite allies slipped away like shadows at noon when the sun reveals truth. She called me reckless, in a letter, accusing me of defamation. Her words tried to turn the moral compass back toward sympathy for a leader. I kept quiet, letting others tell their stories publicly. Each testimony became a stitch in a larger tapestry that made her pattern visible and undeniable. Marisol flew in for Lena's belated birthday. She hugged her mother and told reporters she had sent the necklace with hope, not suspicion, trusting family across states. The necklace remained missing, but the pressure mounted. Carrie Ann's auctions got deeper scrutiny as buyers wondered about provenance and the ethics of bargains. One rainy afternoon, an envelope appeared on our porch with no return address, heavy and thick. My hands felt foreign as they lifted the flap. Inside was a single photograph. Carrie Ann at dawn, a porch shadow in the background, and on the back a scrawled message, "Stop digging or more breaks." Fear crawled along my spine, but in the same breath my anger brightened into a promise. Truth, not silence, would be our answer. Eustace recommended a public forum with the town moderator present. Transparency would force the HOA's process into sunlight and make lies harder to keep. The forum filled until the chairs squeaked. Neighbors queued with lists, timelines, and receipts like soldiers armed with small paper weapons. Under the moderator's steady eye, stories poured out. Missing presents, tools, heirlooms, and photographs. Small violences turned into a chorus demanding accountability. Carrion took the podium and for the first time faltered. Her voice cracked, and a neighbor shouted, "Where's my grandmother's clock?" Suddenly everyone leaned in. She offered apologies wrapped in qualifiers, emotional distances dressed as regret, and proposed restitution that smelled like a bandage over a deeper wound. Ms. Vale stood and read our compiled evidence aloud. The room's temperature shifted as if truth had weight and the air remembered how to breathe differently. Someone from the online auctions community support messaged the moderator with shipping records that linked suspicious parcels to the curator's nearby P.O. box. We presented that record, and the moderator did what small-town moderators fear. She recommended an independent audit, reporting our findings to county investigators with formal signatures. As people clapped, Carrion froze in the spotlight, her smile stripped to something raw and exposed, like a statue chipped by truth's small hammer. She left the podium but did not leave the building. Instead, she watched us with a face I hadn't seen before, a mask cracked beyond repair. Investigation began, and county agents went through auction receipts, bank transfers, and shipment logs with the patient persistence of machines made for sorting truth. Neighbors offered up more receipts. Someone found a receipt for packing tape and a signature matching Carrion at a local drop-off the week before Thanksgiving. The curator's household showed signs of collected items tucked in attics and storage units. Images surfaced of boxes labeled with dates matching our own packages' disappearances. Lena and I sat at the kitchen table, hands clasped, while Eustace explained legal timelines, subpoenas, and the uncanny soreness of awaiting formal justice in a small town. Marisol recorded a short video supporting us. Her voice cracked with love and anger, and it circulated online, gathering messages of solidarity from beyond our county lines. People returned stolen items anonymously. Carrion was arrested that evening for theft and dealing in stolen property. The town felt the slow exhale of a community reclaiming its dignity. At the courthouse, she stared at me without hatred, only a hollow blankness that spoke of someone who had lost more than status could repair. The judge ordered restitution where possible, a public apology, and community service. Some neighbors wanted harsher punishments, others wanted to see her rehabilitated. We received the necklace back in Lena's hands at the town post office, wrapped in tissue and official stamps and the weight of our shared relief. Marisol and Lena embraced in a small, grainy photograph that the reporter used at the end of the story segment, our faces tired and unbowed. Carrion's trial taught the town about greed disguised as benevolence, and neighborly trust took time to rebuild, brick by careful brick, conversation by conversation. I never wanted revenge, I wanted truth and to protect my family, and in a strange way our small drama taught us the power of evidence and patience. Years later, at the neighborhood block party, children chased glitter from an art project across the lawn while adults spoke quietly about lessons learned. I sat with Lena, watching laughter soak into the evening, and thought, exposure, not violence, was the lesson we needed, one that healed more than it destroyed.